What's up YouTube, it's your boy Nachuru. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another episode of Yu-Gi-Oh's Biggest Issue. This week's episode is on the history of the Naturia archetype. Now, as I said multiple times in the last few in the previous episodes, I'm going to be talking about all of the archetypes that were seen in the Hidden Arsenal sets, which will lead into Hidden Arsenal Chapter 1, which won't be released until, I think sometime in November, which I am super excited about. I am super excited for Hidden Arsenal Chapter 1. The first episode that I did was obviously Ice Barrier. Second one, I actually have it here with me. Second one was obviously Mist Valley. Last week's episode was on the Worm archetype. This week, the Naturia archetype. Now the Naturia archetype is an Earth archetype that was also seen in the Dual Terminal series. In the Japanese and the Korean version, it's pronounced Naturu, which obviously means Naturia. Some of the different types that are in this archetype are plants, insects, rocks, beasts, and dragons. There's only a few beasts and only one dragon. That one dragon, I think, is Naturia Barkion. Beasts, I think we have Leo Drake and Naturia Beast. And it's the archetype is kind of similar to Sylvan's, but Sylvan's have a much less variety of types, right? Than the Naturia archetype. What the effects of some of the monsters revolve around either limiting or gaining the advantages from your opponent's spells, traps, and monster effects when they're activated or summoned. Even though the attack and defense are low, if the deck is built correctly, then the Naturia deck can easily control the field and basically one-shot your opponent for game, which is pretty crazy. One of the cards from this archetype was actually used as a bit of an Easter egg for those who did not watch it. One of the cards was actually used by Andre against Yusei Fudo in the 5D's anime. Now the Japanese name Nachuru is a rendition of the English word natural, which is which is also a place from within Japan near Mount Fuji, which I believe I'm actually going to take a look at that. I believe, yeah. I'm trying to look up photos, but I guess it won't let me. Alright, well, yeah, again, I couldn't. Anyway, but yeah, it's actually a place within Japan that's near Mount Fuji. If you guys do know about that, you guys can definitely comment, can definitely comment. Honestly, I don't know much about it, honestly. I'm actually going to try again. Hang on, guys. Yeah, so there are, actually, truth be told, there's a lot of places near Mount Fuji, which Mount Fuji is actually one of the top, I believe it's one of the top 10 tallest mountains in the world. One of them is one of the the top tallest mountain in the world is actually one of the most obvious, which I believe is Mount Everest. But Mount Fuji, I think is ranked fourth, if I remember correctly. But yeah. So what's cool about the archetype is that there were a total of, I believe, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are actually a total of 6 different styles of the Naturia decks. Now the the style of the Naturia archetype is that most of the monsters have effects that can be activated in response to any activation that your opponent may commit. So for instance, for instance, if your opponent activates, say, I'll say imperm. Let's say imperm, okay? Let's say imperm. The archetype can actually activate effects in response to that infinite impermanence. And I know, and some people are probably asking if, especially the newer players, a lot of the newer players are probably going to ask if the Naturia cards can respond to counter traps. Honestly, no, because the only way you can respond to a counter trap is with another counter trap itself, and I don't think the Naturia's got any counter traps, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong, but thus the main strategy is to always resolve your cards during your opponent's turn, which that's actually a pretty good way to control the field, is to use your opponent's cards against them. And truth be told, their main synchros, with the exception of Naturia Leo Drake, have effects that can negate the activation of specific card types, meaning spell, trap, and effect monsters, which would not only further enforce the control aspect of the deck, but it also blocks your opponent from activating spells or traps. Meaning, one of the cards in particular that does that is Naturia Bamboo Shoot, which I'm actually going to read off its effect right now. Give me 1 second here. So, Naturia Bamboo Shoot is a 5-star, is a 5-star Earth Plant, 2000 attack, 2000 defense. If this card is distributed summoned by attributing a Naturia monster, while this card remains face up on the field, your opponent cannot activate spells or traps. So it's basically it's a Jinzo spell canceller. So if you guys don't know about Jinzo or spell canceller prevents your opponent from activating spell cards. Jinzo prevents both players from activating traps. So having Bamboo Shoot on the field can really just ruin the style of your opponent's deck. And thus, actually, truth be told, Bamboo Shoot was like one of the main combo starters to set up your board, because back in the day, Bamboo Shoot was one of your main was like one of the main combo pieces to make a board that would prevent your opponent from playing Yu-Gi-Oh at all. But besides Bamboo Shoot, there are other monsters that can react to your opponent's actions regarding their monsters. One of them is actually Naturia Mantis, which can destroy monsters upon the moment that they are normal summoned. So if your opponent were to normal summon one of their main combo starters, like say you're playing say for example you're playing Naturia. I'll say I'll say Naturia Beatdown, because Beatdown actually also used, from what I remember, Naturia Beatdown actually also used Bamboo Shoot as well. So, say for example, you're playing Naturia Beatdown, your opponent is playing Dragon Link. So, like, let's say that. You end up going first, and you have, say, you actually have Naturia Mantis on board. You pull off your combos, you keep Mantis on the field with Bamboo Shoot, you set your back row, and you pass your turn. Now it's your opponent's turn. So say for example they summon one of their combo stars, which I think is I'll say White Dragon Wyver Buster. Let's say that. Upon the normal summon of Wyver Buster, Mantis will easily destroy it no matter what. So unless if your opponent has Dark Ruler no more, or even Lightning Storm, or Regeki, or any storm, or any form of like monster removal, Mantis is going to be live no matter what. Which that's a pretty broken card to deal with. Mantis was actually one of the main pieces. Again, just like with Bamboo Shoot, this was one of the main cards that you needed, because its effect says when your opponent normal summons a monster, you can send one Naturia monster from your hand to the graveyard to destroy. So as long as you had a good amount of Naturia monsters in your hand, the effect of Mantis is going to be live. So you would need to have a good amount of monsters in your hand to use its effect. Another card that would also destroy monsters when they're summoned is actually Horn Needle, I believe is the proper term, is the name. Naturia Horn Needle, which focuses on destroying the monsters upon being special summoned. Naturia Antjaw would focus on would allow you to special summon would allow you to special summon a Naturia monster each time your opponent would special summon. So if they were to summon special summon Borload, if they were to summon Borload Savage Dragon, yes, it is a synchro summon, but that synchro summon counts as a special summon. So you would be able to summon a Naturia monster from your hand upon the effects of Antjaw, which I think it's the hand. It's from the deck. I thought it was from the hand. My bad. But yeah, you would be able to summon a monster from the deck, which is pretty good. And then of course too you had as well Naturia Pumpkin, which would give you another special summon if your opponent has a monster on board. And then of course for defense purposes, what's going on here? What the hell? What is going on? Really? Fucking hell. I swear, my laptop is being stupid. And then for defense purposes, you can have cards like Naturia Cliff, Cherries, and Beans. With Naturia Secret Tree, it can improve the deck's consistency. And with Naturia Meron, you would be able to recycle your monsters and be able to use their effects again. As far as the fusion monsters go, the only two that they had that the archetype had were Exterio and Gaius Trio, which had powerful control effects, in which combined with their high attack points, they can easily be summoned off of the effects of Miracle Synchro Fusion, and also the Earth Hex Seal Fusion for Exterio, which would be extremely devastating for your opponent. Now, as far as the playstyle, truth be told, actually another truth be told, back in the day, when the Naturia archetype was actually still viable, because that your deck was consisted mostly of earth monsters, you could use cards like Giant Rat, Gigantes, Raydog's Dragon Ruler Boulders, and of course granted saw the elemental lore, but of course with Redox being banned, there's no way that the deck would be viable again. Is it possible? Only time will tell. But here are some of the decks that you would be able to use if they were still viable today. One of them is obviously Naturia Beatdown, which obviously it was just a pure Naturia deck using just a bunch of beatdown cards, and it was all about you either getting Naturia monsters in your grave to summon, and summoning Dragonfly to power it up, or and then of course or you could protect it with Naturia Mosquito inflicting damage to your opponent, which that right there would be the more obvious choice, I guess. You can also easily win your games, win your matches by using Naturia Mosquito with Beans, which by doing this, it'll ensure that your opponent would take a lot of damage by keeping your monsters safe from battle. So basically, those cards will protect your monsters from being destroyed in battle. Swarming the field is good. Was really great for stalling for time, and being able to send your monsters to the grave by using cherries, Antjaw, and of course, by using cherries or Antjaw. By using Naturia Cliff, you would be able to, by having Cliff being sent from the field to the graveyard, you would be able to summon a Naturia from your deck in attack position, which is good for defense and for milling cards from your deck. Obviously, with something like that, you would have to have a good amount of cards, like at least 45 cards, maybe 50. Have at least a large portion of the deck be monsters, and then the rest be spells and traps. Cards that they could use to discard from the deck to the grave would obviously be Foolish Burial Goods, in which with Goods you could use it on Sacred Tree. By doing that, or by sending Exterior's Fang to the grave, it'll help. It would really help in conjunction with Naturia Forest, which it was a pretty broken deck. I think it topped a couple of YCS's back in the day. Next up, the other deck we had Pure Naturia, which again, using cards like Mantis, Horneedle, Antjaw, Cosmo Bead, Butterfly, being able to just swarm, literally just swarm the field with all these different cards, and being able to end on Naturia Beast, Barkion, and at least one other Synchro, maybe another Fusion. That right there was actually really good. And then also too, there were actually 3 draw cards that you would use to ensure that you would be able to make your board. Upstart Goblin was one, Reckless Greed was another. The only downside with Reckless Greed is that you would not be able to draw cards during your draw phase twice. So after 2 turns, you would be able to actually draw your cards. And then of course, Pot of Duality was another good one. And you could even also use Naturia Sacred Tree as well. Another one as well was Naturia Plant, which not only consisted of Bamboo Shoot, but you also had to implement cards like Lone Fire, Dandelion, and then also the Plant Princesses, which were obviously Titanial, Princess of Camellias, Talia, Princess of Cherry Blossoms, and then also Cherubime, Princess of Autumn leaves, as well as Melee of the Trees and Miracle Fertilizer as well. Which those are some incredible cards that they would use in here. You know, and then of course too, being able to swarm the field using Lone Fire as, you know, as one of the main combo starters. It was just it was pretty crazy. Some of the other planet related cards that you would use for this deck were cards like Mark of the Rose, Polynosis, Queen of Thorns, and even also Black Rose Dragon because it's technically a plant. Even though it's a dragon, it is technically a plant. So you could also use Black Rose Dragon in this deck. Naturia Trap Tricks. I've heard a lot about this one. This one I've heard so much about. I didn't hear a whole lot of it, but there were some Trap Tricks cards that you would use for this deck. Mermelia was one. Dianea was another one. Those are some of the more commonly. Those are the ones that were commonly used to provide more control for the deck, and using cards and using some of the different trap hole cards, using Trap Tricks, Trap Hole Nightmare, Time Space Trap Hole, Bottomless Trap Hole was another one. I think Bottomless was limited to one. I think back then. And then being able to use just a whole shitload of rank 4 Xyz monsters, you know, like Utopia, and just so many others, just to name a couple of them, just to name one of them. Cards like Cliff and Cherries were commonly used to provide a more of a defense, and also used as tribute fodder for Naturia Bamboo Shoot. Now, having Sacred Tree in the deck was very integral, which would because it would allow you to get the right monsters at the right time. And not only did this improve the deck's consistency drastically, this deck also, I think, had won OICS many years ago. I don't remember. I think it was what, 20. I want to say 2011, maybe 2012, if I remember correctly. If I remember right, I don't remember. And then of course you had Naturia Stun, or I guess anti-meta. I can't say anything more about it except that you would use Bamboo Shoot, that it would revolve around summoning Bamboo Shoot as quickly as possible, and then combining it by using, you know, anti-meta cards such as Thunder King Ryu, Doom Caliber Knife, Fossil Dyna, and even also with Majesty's Fiend, and of course or even also Cactus Bouncer. It would basically prevent your opponent from doing anything. You can't say anything more about them. Literally, if you were to have Fossil Dyna, Bamboo Shoot, Thunder King, Majesty's Fiend, and Cactus Bouncer all on the field, your opponent would be able to do nothing. And if you were to implement, if you were to also, and I even also heard as well that you could also implement Necro Valley as well, which would prevent your opponent from activating effects in the graveyard. So if you were to implement all those cards together, the deck is stupid, like stupid crazy, absolutely insane. And then the last deck, the last deck style that was implemented as far as the competitive format went was Naturia Reversal OTK. This was an interesting one because if the deck focused on interactions between Naturia Mosquito and with it having that hit with Mosquito and several other small attack Naturia card monsters such as Beans, Cherries, and even also Cliff. And then in order to create the OTK strategy, you would need to have cards like Daigusto Freeze, in Gusto deck. So Naturia Gusto OTK was a really interesting deck. But in order to get Mosquito, there were so many different cards that they could use. Cards like 1-for-1, and even also Inferno Reckless Summon, which was a really crazy deck. Now, as far as the weakness of the archetype itself, or rather some of these different decks, in order to lock your opponent from using those cards, you would need cards like Skill Drain, Tiger King Wangu, and even also Deck Devastation Virus, which would not only destroy the deck itself, but it would also ruin what your opponent would want to be, what your opponent wanted to do with the deck. And focusing on Naturia Bamboo Shoot, you would need cards like Effect Veiler to not only to negate Bamboo Shoot, which would allow you to activate your spells and traps. But because that Effect Veiler was a once per turn type of deal, in order to negate it and send it to the graveyard, you could also use cards like Solemn Warning, and even also you can even also use cards like Solemn Warning, and even also Solemn Judgment, which I think back then Solemn Judgment was banned, and so Solemn Warning was like the next possible thing going, basically. But to cripple the deck itself, Dimensional Fissure, Macrocosmos, and even also Banisher of the Radiance were like some of the best cards that you could use against the deck itself, and even also Rivalry of Warlords was another really good one, being able to prevent the deck from swarming the field with a bunch of cards, like Eggplant and even also Bamboo Shoot. It was those are just some of the better cards they could use to stop the deck and just completely cripple the strategy. So the big question is, was this deck meta? Yes, it was. Truth be told, it was. It did top several YCSs back in the day, if my memory serves me right. I know that the deck had been taken to what was, I think a regional in 2012, and then later on in Worlds. So yes, it was pretty meta, but it wasn't as competitive as a lot of people thought. So could we see new support for them in the future? Absolutely. I think if the archetype were to get at least 2 new synchros and a couple new spells, maybe another new monster, I feel like as if the archetype could really spice the meta up as far as the competitive format goes. But guys, that is going to do it for this video. Let me know in the comments below. Answer the question of the day. Let me know in the comments below. Which style of Naturia did you guys play back in the day? Let me know in the comments below. And that is going to do it for this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you guys smash that thumbs up button if you guys are new to the channel and you guys want more episodes of Yu-Gi-Oh's Biggest Issue. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you guys do not miss out on any new content that comes your way. And be sure to check me out on Twitter and Instagram. All the links will be down in the description. And if you guys have fan mail that you want to send me and want me to open up on the channel, make sure my address will also be in the description as well. And on that, this is your boy Nash, signing out.